Hello and welcome to Autocar Dialogues, a series of panel discussions we have around the annual Autocar Awards every single year. This is in partnership with Reliance General Insurance and Times Network. Now, through the year, we have conversations with the OEMs, manufacturers, suppliers, all around the automotive industry. But today, we shift focus to those that have their pulse on the ground. These are the consumer-facing people. We have with us Mr. Parth Modi, who is the Executive Director of Modi Group. We have Mr. Arun Uppuswamy, the Dealer Principal of Kun Capital Group. We have Mr. Sheel Gupta, the Dealer Principal of Yash Honda. And we have with us Mr. Kaushik Kothari, the Dealer Principal for Crystal Honda and Crystal Kia. Good times for the automotive industry. It's bounced back. There's a resurgence. Dealers are finally smiling again. But you know, we always have new challenges in this industry. We're on the cusp of big changes. We're seeing powertrains change. We're seeing customer trends change. And that is what we're here to discuss today, changing customer trends and powertrains. What are the big trends that you see with customers? You know, what are the new trends? What do people really want that's different? I know value for money was always an Indian trend. Design and styling is something that people were very focused on, but what's new?
I think to start off, as in the industry is moving towards a lot of focus on the safety norms. So a lot of products with good global NCAP or GNCAP ratings are getting good mileage out of that. And obviously the industry is moving with different powertrains, as you already mentioned, EVs, hybrids. So that's one of the key. Safety as well as the different powertrains is what we are seeing as a immediate change in the industry.
Any other trends that you notice amongst customers?
Yeah, I mean, customers are actually looking for a bang for their buck now. You know, those days are gone when people are accepting vehicles just like, you know, normal engines. They want added features, they want added technology, they want connectivity. They're looking at everything for a limited price, that too, you know.
So it has to be a fully loaded car, but still good value for money.
True.
That's one thing we haven't forgotten.
Right.
And customers are willing to pay. So it's not like in the past where people were normally looking at the lower end of the spectrum. I think clearly the ticket size is going up. And alternate powertrains, it's electric. Everybody's talking about electric. So they're not probably buying electric right away, but everybody wants electric. So those are the things.
Yeah. Do you see customers coming in and asking for EVs?
Yes.
Absolutely.
All the time.
On a daily basis.
Yeah. And are they worried about infrastructure? Do they have questions? Do you think they're ready now, or they're thinking about it a little bit in the future?
So that's a little surprising. Customers are really not talking about infrastructure, and people are accepting it that it would take some time for the infrastructure to be ready. But there is a good amount of acceptance for all the different powertrains that are there. So people are even asking for hybrids. The response for hybrids as well has been quite overwhelming.
This is something I wanted to ask because hybrids is relatively new. Taxes are still high. There's not that much, you know, SOPs for hybrids. So the prices are at the higher end of the spectrum. Are consumers accepting it?
Yes, they are. So right now, you know, you have, let's say, Honda City. You have a price premium of about maybe 20%. So I think that is acceptable. But obviously the volumes aren't big, but I think it's a good bridging strategy or a bridging plan for a customer wanting to move to an all-electric. So I think it's just an interim, you can say, path to an all-electric.
So what we've realized is the consumer mindset is that they're ready to pay upfront a little higher, but the daily running costs have to be within a certain
It's
frame.
the monthly
the monthly spend which they are looking at, not the one-time spend. So that's the reason why I feel again that hybrid, you know, does very well over there. And hybrid as a part, if you are able to explain to the customer the total cost of ownership over a span of 8 years, it really turns out to be much more effective.
Yeah. I know that manufacturers struggle with this change between ICE and EV because they have to, you know, plants have to be changed, machinery, tooling, a lot of things have to be, and it's halfway, you know, we're half here and half there. So is that a challenge for dealerships as well? I mean, you know, does that change like a lot of the service setup, the back end? How much change has that caused all of you?
So yes, there is definitely a certain amount of change that has been done to our setups. So as far as the charging infrastructures are concerned, we've even installed 150 kV fast chargers in some of our setups to enable the customers to quick charge or do fast charge. So practically we've charged cars within 18 minutes from 10% to 80%. So that's what it's cost us. I mean, even in terms of service, we've had to have a lot of safety equipments installed for handling the EV vehicles, for handling the chargers, for the earthing requirements. So there are certain changes that every dealership has had to make eventually related to charging under the car hood, when the car is parked inside the showroom or when it's on display. So those changes have also had to be done in terms of cabling and the required safety norms for the EV charging to be on when the car is in display. So these are the minor requirements and changes that the dealerships have had to undergo.
And is it a challenge, this?
So I kind of look at it from a dealership perspective. It's the sales team and the service team. They're going to have a lot of challenges. So selling an electric car is a lot more technical than an ICE car, because we've been used to ICE for decades together, right? So electric is very different. So the customer's knowledge is also kind of limited. So is the dealership's knowledge. So I think that's the first challenge. You've got to be a lot more savvy when it comes to the product in itself. On the service front, it's a whole different ball game now. So you've got the suspension, the brakes, all of that, that's common. But when you come to the powertrain, it's going to be very different. So I think it'll need a lot more of mechatronics, a lot more of electrical, high-end electronics to kind of be able to service these cars too. So,
adding on to what he just said, like as in, apart from the infrastructure at the dealership, the real challenge is with the manpower in terms of training the manpower, since the entire approach has to change now. Yeah. With the EV, we cannot be too price sensitive in terms of the customer. You can't add up beyond a point on the price. So you have to really explain or change your strategy in terms of how he's going to save money over the longer period of time.
Correct.
And how it's environmentally friendly.
Yeah. So the whole sales approach will change, is what you're saying, for an EV vis-a-vis what is an ICE vehicle. You can say, okay, it has these many more features or that many, but for the EV, the approach is more about what he's going to save over a longer period of time. So it's quite a different world out there now. Are customers worried about this high cost of EV? I know you said they're worried only about that monthly spend, but it's quite, some of them, like even with hybrids, it's 5 or 7. I mean, if you take, for example, the Toyota Hi-Cross just now, it's almost a 10 lakh difference between the petrol and then, of course, the hybrid. And that's almost one car difference between the two ends of the spectrum. So are consumers worried, or do you think they're just different sets of consumers and different people who buy these things?
No, so actually when you compare the hybrid versus the IC, which version are you comparing becomes quite important. So hybrids are usually available in the top variants. So when you see the price gap between the IC top variant versus the hybrid top variant, the price gap is not that much, even if as far as the high ride or the high cross is concerned. The initial cost is something that the consumer looks at, but then when he's seeing that there is no cost of operation which is drastically reduced when you see it, so that's when he's completely convinced about going in for a different powertrain.
But then as a dealership, because a large part of a dealership is also the service costs, what you get from after you sell a car. So how does that affect dealerships in the long run? Are you guys worried about that? Because servicing an EV is relatively easier.
No, that's going to be a problem. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a problem. In terms of revenue, we're going to see drastic reductions in terms of revenue, at least for two-wheelers, because a two-wheeler doesn't require service at all, and two-wheeler EV.
Yeah. And there it's even battery is like a swap, and there's just so much happening in the two-wheeler space with EVs. It's a completely different world.
Also, there is a big problem now. The price gaps are reducing drastically. And now an EV and an ICE engine is almost at par. You can say there's a few thousands here and there difference remaining. So the government has really given it a very big push, and consumers are now in two minds whether they should go for an EV, wait for a better EV to come. But yes, the gaps are reducing, acceptance is going higher. We are going to be facing issues in service operations. We'll have to reduce our service shop sizes probably in going further, because these vehicles will absolutely not require any work to be done.
And do you already see the reduction in ICE versus the EVs, especially as far as inventory and things go? Do you see that change happening? Because I think last year was a record year for EV sales for two-wheelers.
Yes, Pune as a city, from what numbers I've heard, is already the market penetration is at 10 to 15%.
Correct.
The entire two-wheeler market in Pune.
and
is
even
moved to
more
EVs.
is I'm hearing higher numbers. So
Yes.
So I think EV in the two-wheeler space is really big. So it's kind of getting there. So clearly, like what Yash mentioned, you're going to see the infra shrinking very soon. But I think ICE is still here to stay. I don't think it's just going to disappear from the face of the earth over the next few years. So it's here to stay. So I think I'm still hoping that we'll have our dealerships still full.
I personally feel
robust
that
sales, yeah.
I personally feel passenger car EV transition will take a little more longer than the two-wheeler.
The costing is different, yeah, because for passenger cars, the cars are still expensive.
Also, I think it's the range anxiety in a two-wheeler is much less because it's a shorter distance that you're traveling over. So there's not that much range anxiety over there, and therefore more acceptance in the two-wheeler space. Whereas for four-wheelers, I think people tend to take their cars out of town. So
business model as well in EV business will turn more into a sales driven business than service driven.
That is true.
In ICE, we still have a balance between sales and after sales in terms of our revenue as a dealership. But in EV, it's going to be definitely more so on the sales front.
and we're already seeing digitization in sales, So do you think with EVs that will become even more so because there's not that many variants, there's not that many features. You generally see one variant of a car in an EV. There's not, 10 different options that you're offering. So do you think that there will be more digitization, more like a virtual tour of the car and maybe last mile physical?
Absolutely. I mean, so I think prior to 2019, we were having only walk-ins, right? So customers coming to the dealership, we go out, sell these cars, but COVID hit and everything is online. And we're actually seeing that continue now. Mm-hmm. So obviously, we're seeing a comeback in the regular physical, but I think the digital element is here to stay and is going to grow big.
And I think customers also educating themselves so much more on like social media, YouTube. They get so much information off it now, and then they come already armed with.
There's a lot of info. They come ready with a lot of info to the place now.
So is the salesperson's job reduced, or is it tougher, or how has that changed?
I personally feel it's tougher.
It's tougher because the guy is quite educated now.
Yes, the customer
knows
is very
more.
well read.
The salesperson has to be more prepared now because the customer's coming in with all the information, with all his research done.
Yeah.
So he must really know his subject.
Okay.
So again, the training and the capability of the sales team at the dealerships is very important in this angle.
And does that mean that your salesperson is also trained on, competition products? Because obviously this guy's come prepared and armed with all that information and he's comparing. So your salesperson would also have to know what's happening in the other side.
Yes, absolutely. I think across all dealerships and all OEMs, all the sales manpower has to be well versed with all the products in that segment because there will always be a comparison. A customer is going to consider 2-3 options before he makes up his mind at the very least.
So COVID has actually made sales tougher than easier, yeah? Although we're seeing all the numbers bounce back, there's a lot more work that's going into it.
There is definitely lots
of
of work going into it.
Yeah.
But the touch and feel is still to be there for a long time. I totally disagree that everything can go online and people can virtually see vehicles. I think the Indian consumer wants to come, check out the vehicle, touch and feel, sit on the vehicle. They want to see physically the product. I won't name a manufacturer, but there was a certain manufacturer who tried this concept and did not succeed and eventually had to start setting up dealerships all across the country.
Correct.
So digitization would happen to the extent of 50-60%. But as he rightly said, touch, feel, or certain aspects of visiting the showroom, the physical appearance of the vehicle is something that cannot be just taken away by augmented reality or by...
And it's still an expensive asset.
Yeah.
So a customer is investing a lot, be it a two-wheeler or a commercial vehicle or a pass car. So given that it's an expensive asset for him or her, I think that physical thing will continue. But a lot of research happens in the background. So the customer is kind of, zeroing in on a product or probably two products and kind of then just the last decision is at the dealership.
My question is it just touch feel, or is it also the confidence that one gets of knowing that there is a face that I can approach if there is a problem or if anything ever happens? Because I know I hate call centers. So if I know that there's a person I can sit in front of and complete a
You
deal,
hit the
that's
nail.
far better.
100%.
You've hit the nail.
Yeah.
They would like to speak to someone, yes.
When you're buying, and this is a price possession. I mean,
Yeah.
see, as you rightly said, buying a car is just not buying a car.
Yeah.
It's a status symbol. It's a price possession. It's
a journey. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's kind of a journey
Correct.
for the
And it's a journey for a long time because
Yeah.
you don't buy a car every day. I mean, a car stays with an average Indian for at least 5 years.
True that.
So a showroom today is not only just a display, it's the confidence that the consumer has in the brand. Correct? You're also building that brand confidence with the consumer. And how do you retain? So it's with so much competition out there, it's tough to retain this brand confidence. Consumers, like you said, well aware, he wants a lot. Competition is offering a lot. So how difficult has it been to retain customers within your brand fold?
I think customer retention is the holy grail for us. That's the hardest thing. But the only way, I think after sales plays a big role in that. Yeah. How you serve the customer after he has walked out of the showroom with the vehicle, that is the key point in terms of retaining him. All the manufacturer will focus on a good retention or good loyalty. Mm-hmm. So how many customers in a year are we selling cars to who were erstwhile our own customers? So it's definitely a challenging bit, but I think good after-sales service is the only way.
Is key to retain. There's also, I've noticed now a new trend of dealers doing a lot of activities with their customers. It's not just after sales and chalo, bring your car, I've serviced it well, or I'm addressing your problems. Like dealers have driving days out, and there's so much that's changing around this. So is that also a changing trend that you're finding?
So we just had something over the weekend with one of the brands. So we had a bunch of customers. We took them from Chennai to Mahabalipuram and kind of, spent a lot of time with them. So I think it's a whole experience. So it's becoming experiential rather than just a transactional. So the move from a regular automotive transaction is now becoming a holistic experience during that 3-5 years of car ownership.
Is that across two-wheelers as well? You find that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Only in the high-end bikes probably, yeah, but not in regular commuter vehicles. These type of activities don't take place much.
So it's really interesting that our customers are now, I think, have become far more mature than they were. And you began with saying that safety is a big trend that customers are seeing. I think thank God for that, because at one point, someone would come and ask you that, okay, how do I cut out ABS and get a cheaper car? But
it's standard now.
Yeah, it's standard now. ADAS, we are seeing a lot of ADAS. But how many of the customers really know how these function, and what part of that is training your people to go out there and do they teach the customers how these features function and actually operate out on the road? Because a test drive is such a small span of time. So post the customer buying the car, I say, do you have like training programs or things that would tell the customers how all these features in their car function? Because I find most often people buy cars and they don't know how half the things operate.
So that's where I think digitization plays a very important role. So most of the showrooms nowadays have the video wall, which is showcasing how exactly the ADAS features work, and along with the guided tour by the consultant at the time of delivery or at the time of test drive also, these features are explained in advance as well as at the time of delivery.
Okay.
So at the time of test drive also the customer is well versed, and all thanks to technology, I mean Google, YouTube videos, so customer looks at all aspects, as he said, he's very well read. He'll study every bit of it and then walk into the showroom. Yeah. In fact, he would tell us one feature which we were, we had just forgotten, we missed.
Happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Customers are very educated, so they do a lot of the research, so they'll know a lot about the product or ADAS beforehand itself.
It's only that I feel digitization is going to be a very important part of the sales journey. But again, a one-stop solution is what the customer looks at today. They don't have time. So when he is across a consultant, he is getting every aspect of his deal closed at one with a single point of contact. So whether be it a used car, whether be it insurance, whether be it finance, whether be it accessories, he doesn't need to go on 10 different apps to see 10 different things or 10 different digital platforms to be able to, get his car completely done up. So that touch and feel, that one point of coordination and communication is going to be there, and it is definitely going to remain.
So I think safety, there are two elements. I mean, one is the airbags, ABS, ESC, traction, whatever, all of that. Yeah. And then you've got the adaptive safety, right? So I think adaptive safety is still, down the road. A lot of people are talking about it, but I think the other part is going to become hygiene, right? So everybody is going to keep talk. I mean, they're going to talk about, you know, what kind of G NCAP rating or what kind of NCAP ratings are you going to have. So that is standard. ADAS is probably maybe a year or two away from now. So everybody is going to introduce. It's just a matter of time. But then the whole discussion about ADAS will probably kick off stronger, maybe
a couple
of years down the lane.
Down the line. Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation with all of you, with a lot of changing trends that we see. Definitely one thing that has emerged from this conversation is that the customer is way more mature, tuned for safety, and knows a whole lot more than he did before. And I think media and social media is responsible for a lot of that. It's been an interesting conversation. Thanks for listening in to Autocar Dialogues.